Okay, so for this video, we are going to review the measurement sketch notes that will go in your science notebook. You can trim this up so it can fit, make sure it gets glued in, and just follow along and fill in the blanks, and make sure you listen and ask questions if you have any questions. So first, when we're reviewing measurement, we want things to be accurate. Okay, so accuracy is correctness of a measurement. We want to always record the unit with the number. So for example, you can't just write 6.3. You want to write what unit you did your measurement in. So if you were measuring liquids, you could measure in milliliters. If you measured how tall the tower was, you would put centimeters. You would never just leave the measurement blank behind the number. So a repeatable observation of a quantity that includes a number and a unit. So when we are talking about a measurement, that's why this is right here. Okay? So a measurement is a repeatable observation of a quantity that includes a number and a unit. So when I say you need to go take your measurements, you need to make sure that when you measure, you write down that number, but you also write down the unit behind it. Okay, in science, we mainly are going to use the metric system, which is also known as the SI system. It is French for the International System. Scientists worldwide, so not just in America, but worldwide, scientists use and have agreed to use this one system, which we also like to call the metric system. So when I measured your towers, I was measuring in centimeters because that is a unit of the metric system. Okay? So whenever we are going to be measuring, a lot of times when we want things to be accurate, we're actually going to look at the exact measurement. But before, a lot of times we will just guess. Okay? So in this situation, when you are talking about an estimate, this would say the mass will be about. So that's an estimate. It's not exact. All right, so this little section of the notes over here is just reviewing that an estimate is a guess. So instead of just saying the mass is or the mass equals 200 grams, if you say the mass will be about 200 grams, that's an estimate. And we will practice doing that this week as well. All right, so the most important part of the notes would be these two charts here. So when you are doing any kind of activity, experiment, investigation, lab, whatever it is, and you have to measure, you want to make sure you're using the correct tool and that you're using the correct units and that you are also measuring correctly. So let's look at length first. Length is the distance between 2 points. And the unit is going to be a meter. That's a meter stick. Okay, or we're going to use a centimeter in class. And that would be an abbreviation of cm. So we would use a ruler as our tool or a meter stick. So this little chart is just kind of going to like summarize all of the things that we're going to measure, the definition, the unit you would put behind it. So next we have volume. Volume is the amount of space something occupies, or like the amount of space that an object takes up. So a lot of times we are looking at liquids. So we would use a liter, or like I said earlier, milliliters, which is a lowercase m and a big L. Or we could use cubic centimeters. Okay? If we're doing the volume of a solid, we could find the volume in cubic centimeters. So we could use a ruler. We're also going to use a graduated cylinder. The graduated cylinder is what we're going to use to measure the volume of a liquid. Mass is the amount of matter in a solid, liquid, or gas. So volume is the amount of space it takes up, and mass is the amount of actual matter in the object. So mass we measure in grams, which is a lowercase g. And we use a triple beam balance or a scale. You can also use a scale. For density is the amount of matter in a given volume. Okay, so it's actually mass divided by volume. Okay? So for the unit, it is grams per cubic centimeter. So I'm just going to abbreviate it here, GCM with a little 3. Alright, and we're going to practice all this, okay? This is just so your handy dandy little cheat sheet, okay? All to review the things about measurement before you actually do it. So this is where you would use a calculator to find density, because you need to have the mass and the volume, so you would use those other tools to measure that first. So for time, it's the different period between events. So start and stop. We would use seconds. That's our main one. Okay. I wrote too big. That's okay. Put minutes, because sometimes when we're timing something, it ends up going for minutes. And we will use a stopwatch in this class to measure time. For temperature, it's how hot or cold something is. And we are going to use degrees Celsius, degrees Fahrenheit, and we're going to use Kelvin. You're going to see all three of those, so that's why I want you, you're going to see them at some point, okay? So I want them all to be on the chart for you. So now when we're thinking about measurement, we have the different types of measurement, what that actually means, the unit you would use, and the tool you would use. Okay? So if we look down at the bottom, when we talked about units, alright, sometimes you'll have to convert units. So we're just going to fill in this little chart. These are just common prefixes, so like milli, centi, things like that. Okay? So if you had a kilogram, you would multiply, no, you were going to divide by 1,000. Okay, if we're using meters. Okay, so I'm sorry, we're going to use meters. So then for this one, it would just be 1 because it's our base. Okay, and then centi, 0.1, and it would be centimeter, Remember, a prefix is at the beginning. So this is just kind of showing you the prefixes for some of the measurement units that you're going to see. So you're really going to be using centimeter. So that's really the one you want to focus on, okay? And you can use a calculator anytime you're trying to figure out anything. So this is it for the measurement notes for right now. But I want to just point out that this part right here, this section, the tool, the symbol, the definition, this is the part that is the most important from these notes. Okay? Most important section right here. This is also where the quiz questions are going to come from, these notes. Okay? So make sure you review these for the measurement quiz.